We talk now?
Not yet.
Go ahead, Stan.
And welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Press Box, PressBoxOnline.com. And with me is the old left-hander in orange, Ross Grimsley, paying tribute to his years as a Baltimore Oriole. How are you, Ross?
Wonderful, buddy. How you doing?
All right. In about 40 seconds, we're going to talk to one of the greatest Orioles of all time, certainly the greatest Oriole pitcher of all time, and that is Jim Palmer. But first, I got to tell you about another great, iconic place in Baltimore, and that's the Costas Inn. Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. Everybody in town knows that they're the place to go for steamed crabs, cakes, crab soup. They have fantastic steaks, specials every night of the week. And what they've done during the pandemic, they stepped up their curbside pickup. So if you want to go to the Costas Inn, but you're not comfortable going inside, go to CostasInn.com, order your food on the website, pay for it on the website, and then when you pick it up, you don't even have to get out of your car, and everything is packed immaculately. It's the Costas Inn. Tell them Stan the Fan sent you, and you can say Ross Grimsley sent you.
Yeah,
Well,
good idea.
all right, joining us now is the best pitcher in Oriole history. There's a couple good ones just below him. It's like Dave McNally, Mike Cuellar, Messina, Ben McDonald, but he's the greatest Oriole pitcher of all time that I've ever seen, and he is Jim Palmer. Jim, how was your Thanksgiving holiday with the family?
Thankful. Very good, actually.
Good. Quiet? Quiet.
Yeah, what? At my age, everything's quiet.
All right. I know that, and I think Ross knows that too.
No,
Oh, yeah.
Ross is married to Bird. I mean, there's no quiet.
That keeps me young.
Yeah. Ross has
Yeah.
got the bird chirping in his ear all the time.
How is she, by the way?
She's doing well. She said be sure to say hi.
Okay.
All right.
She's doing good.
Hey, Jim, while we unpack the Orioles' 2022 season filled with a lot of promise and wonder how we can get better for the 2023 season, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is innings pitched. They've got a guy who I think, keeping our fingers crossed, doesn't get hurt in spring training or before, is Grayson Rodriguez. Grayson Rodriguez, in 4 seasons in the minor leagues, pitched 19 innings, 94 innings, then the 2020 season, no innings, 103 innings in 21, and last year, 75 innings. What can the Orioles honestly hope to get out of him next year? Could he go up to 140 or 150 innings pitched?
I can't imagine that.
Okay.
If you look at Dean Kramer went from 0-7 to being 8-7, really pitched well. I think he had like 22 games, 21 starts. He threw 125 innings. So I think if I still say that with DL Hall, not getting the innings, he had the elbow problems 2 years ago. Last year, they used him in the bullpen because they want him to bring to the big leagues, and he pitched pretty well. But again, if he's going to go to be a starter, you're talking 2024 until they could get to that 130 to 150 range. That's just the way they handle pitching now. I mean, Ross, we got you your first year with Baltimore. You almost pitched 300 innings. You'd come off like 242 innings.
294, yeah.
Yeah, it's a different world now. They want to, they got a big investment in Grayson. Everything I've read or seen or scouts that I've talked to said that if he, again, as what you said, Stan, if he can stay healthy, he's got all the stuff. He's got great work ethic. He understands how to pitch. But again, to think that he's going to go out there and pitch much more over 120 this year, not that he's not capable of doing that. We all know he is. They're just going to put the governor on him.
Okay, so you think that the number is about 120, the tops for him?
Number one, he's got to get to the big leagues. He's got to get through spring training. He was going to come to the big leagues within 1 or 2 weeks when he hurt the lat, and that's a major injury. I saw a lot of the Zooms he did last winter. he prepares himself as well as any of us. So he'll be prepared. I mean, I saw, they had him on Zoom about 10 days ago.
Yeah.
He's doing exactly the same thing. He'll go to spring training. I think it really depends if they add any other pitchers. I think one of the most surprising things to me, I don't know how anybody else thinks about this, was the fact that Jordan Lyles pitches 179 innings to have an $11 million, option, and 12 and 11 mentor. They called him dad. I was surprised they didn't pick up that option, even if they're, to have as a trade trip, it's a trade chip. So you're going to have to replicate or somehow get another 180 innings out of somebody, or 150 and whatever. And there are no guarantees. That's a lot of innings. Never missed a start. I think he did have the flu one time, but he really did a nice job for the Orioles. Much better at home with the new, the new configuration through 26 home runs, 20 on the road, only 6 at Camden Yards.
One of the things about Camden Yards, it's clear that the club is building, Mike Elias's view of this offensively is to get a lot of left-handed hitters in the ballpark. But does the park play well for a smart right-handed pitcher? I guess you've already answered that with how you give props to Jordan Lyles. Can a right-hander use the way that ballpark is configured now?
Well, Ross was obviously left-handed, but I would think when you go from 364 to the power alley to 398, it would make me feel pretty comfortable about pitching in. Good pitchers can pitch to both sides of the plate. You got a 17-inch plate. You got about 2.5 inches on both sides. You'd like to live in, that 5.5-inch area, both in and out. And then, if you can change speeds and you can pick up and down. But I would think you'd be pretty comfortable pitching in to right-handers, even away to lefties. It's funny, Eduardo Rodriguez, he was hurt all year for the Tigers, but he came in towards the end of the year and he said, boy, I wish they had the fence like that when I pitched for the Red Sox. And then he said, there's only one lefty that I think can hit it out there. And he said, Rafael Devers. You really, if you're left-handed, have to smoke the ball to get it out in left center field.
Yeah.
And even if you're right-handed. So again, it's a pitcher's park now. We used to have Tampa. Now you have the Orioles. I would consider that still a pitching park, even though center field is certainly reachable. Same with right field. But, you could just see the ERA went down almost 2 runs a game. And what the ERA in 2021 was almost 6 runs a game. It went down, to 3.7 or something like that at Camden Yards. So, a lot of young pitchers, a lot more confidence, better bullpen. And again, they're going to have to try to duplicate that or replicate that when the season starts, because Russ knows as well as any of us, they're going to take those 83 wins. They're going to take all those low ERAs. They're going to do all that stuff, and it just goes out the window, and you have to prove that you can do it again. That's the challenge of Major League pitching.
Ross, go ahead. You grab Jim for a couple.
Cakes, the Orioles starters pitched 802 innings. The relievers pitched 631. That's about 170 innings difference between the starters and relievers. Obviously, starters are going to have to give more innings because the bullpen got tired toward the end of the year, and their ERA was probably a point higher or more. What do you think the O's will do to get starting pitching? And how many pitchers are they going to have for starters? With a 5-man rotation, 6-man? What do you think they're going to do?
Well, that's kind of an interesting point. You still have to have your guys in the bullpen, and we saw DL Hall finish the year, at least the last 5-6 weeks. He started one game down in Tampa, and then they took him to the minors, and they said we're going to bring him up out of the bullpen. He pitched very well. That's why I thought they'd sign Jordan Lyles. Now, I'm not Mike Elias. He said they're going to try to spend more money. I don't know who's going to be available, but I do know they didn't sign a guy that gave you almost 180 innings and won one more than he lost. And also, again, was a veteran guy with a very young staff. I think ideally you'd like to, but Ross, I don't know how, I assume you follow the Orioles, maybe not as much as I do because I'm doing games, but I thought we learned a lot about Bradish. Bradish is arguably the best 4-7 pitcher in either the American or National Leagues. You know, had that one big game in St. Louis early on with 11 strikeouts, hurt his shoulder, went back down to the minors, was on the IL for a while. When Kramer and Bradish went down to Houston in late August, you know, and again, this is a team that would win the most games in the American League other than the Yankees.
Over 100 games. Yep.
Right. I think 106 or whatever it was, and then win the World Series. Kramer and Bradish pitched two, and Boston Vogt on that Sunday pitched 3 incredible games. Okay, so then they come back about 2.5 weeks later in Baltimore, a little bit easier place to pitch. Kramer and Bradish pitch again, marvelous games. Not only, and you know, the games down in Houston, they all, you know, I think both he walked the leadoff guy in the 7th inning, but they all got into the 7th inning or later.
Yep.
You know, the next time through the lineup, they did it. So, you know, you saw some of the young guys do that. But again, with Grayson Rodriguez, back to your point, if he had the kind of innings that, you know, because of the injuries, and he's not really that young. I think he's 23.
He's just turned 23 last week on the 18th.
So I mean, you think at 23, you know, the guy's been pitching in the big leagues a couple of years, but because of the pandemic and injuries and whatever, he hasn't. I'm not sure he'd even be pitching in late August or September under the fact that he just hasn't pitched that many innings. So,
yeah,
you know, that's going to be the challenge for Mike Elias. You know, I think the bullpen was incredible. You know, you look at Brian Baker, he was as good as any of them. I mean, obviously Batista had a marvelous year. Cionel Perez, I mean, what, his ERA home and road was like 135, 140. Can he replicate that? That's hard to do. You know, we were down in Houston, and Gary Pettis, third base coach, said, hey, we always knew he had a great arm because he signed out of Cuba with, you know, with the Astros and then went to Cincinnati. But I mean, I watched some of the highlights before the season, and, you know, he pitched about 20 innings, struck out 25, and they were all 96, 97 miles per hour. But by the end of this year, he could get you out with breaking balls. He came up with a little bit of a two-seamer, threw a lot of strikes, and hopefully, and again, he's going to have to prove this, great kid, you know, comes in. I mean, you know, strong. I mean, little guy. Reminds me. I mean, I don't know if anybody is Ron Guidry, but he has that type of body frame where he gets a lot out of his body.
Yeah.
Cakes, you know, the pitching was really, I did an outstanding job this year. And I think that was a little bit of a surprise. They didn't expect them to do quite as good as they did. Is there some type of philosophy that they go, because I know they threw less pitches to hitters. They threw more first pitch strikes. They didn't walk as many guys. Was there something, a philosophy that they had, or that the pitching people had that they caught on to, or were able to handle somehow?
Well, you know, you have two pitching coaches. You got Chris Holt, and then you got Darren Holmes, who pitched in the big leagues, was a pretty good reliever, even though he pitched part of his career in Colorado. That's not a confidence. Never pitched there. It's not a confidence booster. You know, but the basic mantra was, we're going to throw strike one down the middle. Let's not nibble. Now, I think a lot of that had to do with the new configuration of Camden Yards. It's a little bit easier to, you know, when a guy can hit one 390 feet to left center field, and last year it would have been a 3-run home run or a solo home run or whatever. And this year it's a can of corn because, you know, it's not like Yankee Stadium. Remember when Yankee Stadium used to be 457 out in left center field, and Roy playing with his feet on the warning track, he would come in on 430-foot fly balls. So I just think that it was a lot easier to be confident. You know, also you had some guys, you know, I mean, Dean Kramer, give him credit. I mean, the guy's 0-7, got an ERA over 7 game. Spencer Watkins, you know, maybe, you know, pitched better than he did the year before. I mean, there were a lot of guys that really made some improvements. I still think that, I hate to keep bringing up Jordan Lyles, but, you know, Jordan Lyles was a guy that, you know, pitched 180 innings for Texas. Now, he threw a lot of home runs, comes to Baltimore. He mentors these guys. He throws strikes. He does a lot of the things. And Russ, I don't know. I mean, you know, when I got to the big leagues, I had Robin Roberts, so he's on his way to Cooperstown. Used to watch him throw a 12 hit shutout because he knew how to get the first guy out. He knew how to throw strikes. And he used to tell me, he said, Jimmy, pitching's not that difficult. Now, of course, this is a guy on his way to 286 wins.
Yeah.
But, you got a fastball you can throw for a strike. You got one you can throw for a ball, the same with your breaking ball. And then you throw you field your position. You know, back then before the DH, you got to hit, bunt, and do all those kind of things. field your position, pick, hold runners and so whatever. So I just think that, Holtz and Aaron Holmes did a good job. I mean, this is a team that ERA went from what, 584 or something to 397. That's over 2 runs difference.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Now, let's also, the ball was different. What kind of baseball are they going to use in 2023?
Yeah, really.
I mean, if you look, I mean, it's funny. I used to always, Russ, remember we used to pitch and the guy hit one. I mean, we'd see whether it's batting practice or in the games, and the outfielder would go back and he'd catch it just shy of the fence, warning track, and we'd say warning track power, 10 more feet.
Yeah.
That's what this new ball did to a lot of hitters. What happened was, guys, 2-3, I mean, especially 2019, they'd fly out to the warning track. It's 10, 12 rows up in the bleachers. The ball was more lively in 1978. Ball went about 18 feet farther for every 360 feet. They don't tell us how farther it went in 2019 versus 2022. But that's why, to me, Judge had such an incredible year. And, he hit 62 home runs with a dead ball compared to what it was in 19, 20, and 21. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of baseball they play with.
Jim, let me ask you the other sort of 8,000-pound elephant in the room. You had to do everything you could the last couple of years prior to 2022 to just not spend the entire game lambasting Chance Sisco or Pedro Severino for their lack of skills catching the baseball and calling a game. How much better was the work that Chirinos, Bemboom, and then Rutschman did this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think ideally, Bemboom, he was there early with Chirinos, when Adley Rutschman had the tricep problem in spring training. I think a lot of people, because apparently, a lot of scouts had said, well, he might have had some shoulder problems when he was at Oregon State. So we didn't, again, everybody's saying, well, did he hurt his arm or whatever? But it looked to me that he threw quite well. But, he didn't get there until late May, I believe. Yep. And he threw 113, 115 games, almost 400 at bats. He's arguably the best catcher in baseball. Now, I don't get to see all the guys in the national leagues, on a regular basis. And I know Trevino, who came over from Texas or Houston to, I guess it was Texas, over to Texas, the Yankees, won the Gold Glove, the Platinum Gold Glove. Got some big hits against us, but I don't know if there's anybody at age 24 that is going to have the kind of career that Adley Rutschman has. Now, he's still got to show us he can hit right-handed, left-handed. I mean, with 35 doubles. The batting average the last 3 years was like 260 to 270. Struggled the first month. Looked like maybe the speed of the game got ahead of him, but engaged. He's like what a good catcher should be. Yeah. And I mean, you go back and look at the catchers, a couple prior years, and you're right. John Means pitches a perfect game. If Severino, all he's got to do, he knows the curveball's coming. What do? You just block the ball. You keep it in front of you. You shuffle it out in front. Ball goes to the backstop. This is a no-hitter. Should have been a perfect game.
Right.
And and then it's he's an upgrade. He's an upgrade on any catcher in the big leagues, and that's why they gave him $8 million.
Jim, if you looked at the Astros and the Phillies going into the World Series, their offensive numbers were kind of similar. Clearly, Houston had better starting pitching, but the big difference was Houston had a bullpen that just never stopped. That's become real telltale trait of the teams that win it. So using that theory, do DL Hall and Tyler Wells, should they be transitioned to bullpen arms to not as a negative about them as starters, as much as they both could be dominant relievers?
Well, back to Russ's point, who's going to start?
Yeah.
It's not going to be Bruce Zimmerman. Bruce Zimmerman, they need to send him to where'd Scotty McGregor move to? Nashville?
Tennessee. Knoxville.
Okay, Tennessee. Okay, they need to send him down there, so he can learn to change up and learn he's not a power pitcher and learn how to throw strikes. smart kid, Baltimore kid. You
Yep.
want him to do well, but I mean, he just got hammered, and his command was not good or whatever. But it's great. I think actually, I mean, Ben McDonald and I talked to Tyler Wells. We told him, okay, not that he's bigger than I am. He's bigger than Ben. He's 6'8", what about 260? It's not in your bad shape. You want to come to spring training in 23 if you're going to be a starter. Now that you know what it's like, be in the best shape you can be, because I mean he went 7-7. I think his fastball velocity should kind of be where it was more when you're a starter. I mean, Ross, I remember you were 92 to 94.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, no, when you first came to the Orioles, and you got to understand the gun now is 3 to 5 miles per hour faster. So Ross Grimsley on today's gun, because it's out of your hand, not at home plate, is throwing somewhere between 95 and 98 miles per hour. And you're feeling really good about yourself, aren't you?
Oh, yes. I say it again. Sorry if I can hear it. Say it one more time.
Well, just tell me.
We'll flag that video and
Oh,
audio
yeah.
so we can use it.
No, so I mean, so you can't get enamored. You can't get enamored, with what the velocity is. I mean, Earl Weaver is one of the first guys. Steve Stone would be pitching, and Cuellar, McNally, Flanny, Ross, whatever. If you can pitch, you can make good pitches third and fourth time through a lineup. Now, I mean, you don't even get a chance because they look at the number and the guy in the bullpen has a lower batting average until, as Ross said, until you get to September and they're exhausted because they've been in more games than they really do. And that's why I thought it was so outstanding that Bradish and Kramer and even Austin Both, who came over from the Nats, had an ERA, limited innings, over 10 runs a game, was able to pitch at the level he was able to. He was able to get you into the 5th, 6th, 7th inning. So, I think Tyler Wells has a chance. He's got 4 pitches. He's got a really good changeup. He's got a good slider. But I think if he gets himself in a little bit better shape, number one, because he got hurt and he came off Tommy John. He threw 5 innings, 5 1/3 innings, 4
Jim,
and 2.
that's my other thought about Hall and Wells is, again, 2 guys that aren't really built up for the long haul of being starting pitchers, where they really can give you the innings that you need from starters.
Well, I think Tyler proved to me, that he had about 100 innings, 100, I don't even know, somewhere that number. So I think he could progressively go to 120, 130, able to pitch maybe. It's funny when Dave Wallace and Dom Chidi were, and we never talked about it this way because you never thought about this. They kept the pitch count, and just so they knew what it was. But can you imagine going Earl Weaver? You going? I feel a little exhausted. I've tried pitches. You're in the 5th inning.
Yeah, right.
So, but I do think Tyler Wells has the stuff to be able to be a starting pitcher now. So I'm not running this club. I have them condition themselves in the off season, and I have to go because it's going to be a normal spring training. Hopefully, it's not going to be like lockout, 99-day lockout. You send both DL Hall and Tyler Wells along with the other guys to spring training as starters. And then you can always back off. You can't, you can't have them pitch 2 1/3 innings or whatever. But I mean, when Dave Wallace and Don Chidi were, they're saying, we're gonna try to get 16 outs, or 16 to 21 outs this year, or whatever, 18 to 21 outs. Well, that's like 5 2/3 to 7 innings. But that's the mentality now.
Yeah.
And to your point, that's why Houston won. I mean, it's unbelievable the guys they bring out of their bullpen. I mean, those guys, and it's funny, they did a great job of going down, something that Michael Elias wants to do, going down to the Dominican and getting guys that were a little bit older than the normal. I mean, you start scouting guys down there at age 14, sign them when they're 16. So, I think some of those guys didn't sign till they were 18 or 19. That's like, it's like you're an old man. You're from the Dominican.
Ross,
I was reading it the other day, and they were talking about a lot of steroid use and so on, and down in the Dominican. But the average household salary in the Dominican Republic is $8,200 a year.
Wow.
So obviously, what do you want to do if you're a young player? What if you want to do if your kid is a young pitcher or a player? You want them to get signed for a bunch of money, and it's going to change your life. So,
Yeah.
But the Orioles, hopefully, some of the guys they sign down there will be able to come up. The Felix Bautistas of the world. Well, to me, he's the biggest story of anybody on the team. It's not that other guys didn't pitch well because he did. So, Perez pitched well, but Felix Bautista to be able to throw what he did, 98 to 102, and throw strikes was remarkable.
Ross, go ahead. You got a couple for Jim.
Yeah, Cakes, when you talk about Houston, you talk about some of the better teams pitching wise, they have starters. You think starting pitching will ever be valued as it once was again?
I don't know. The late Jimmy Fry, Jimmy is our first base coach, hitting instructor. He goes to Kansas City. They go to the World Series. I think they lose to the Phillies. And then he goes to the Cubs. He's not, he's doing radio, and I think he managed the Cubs. He's a general manager. And one day he tells me, he says, if I ever have a position of, running a ball club, which he eventually did, he said, I'm going to a 4-man rotation. He goes, it's easier to find 4 pitchers.
Yeah.
When he goes to be the GM of the Cubs, they never went to a 4-man rotation. People go, how'd you ever do that? Well, tell them, Ross, how did you do it?
I
4-man
thought it was
rotation.
great. It was for me to pitch on a 4-man rotation. Well, especially it didn't do it till I came to Baltimore, and I had you 3 guys to watch, and it made it a lot easier for me. But you just, we ran our butts off. We threw on the side every in between starts, which was a big thing. You didn't air it out, but you always threw. You ran. You're in great shape, and you just made it. You threw strikes. You changed speeds, and you worked quick. That was the thing that. Pretty simple stuff.
Yeah, I again, back to Stan and your point, ideally you would like to have, and we saw it again with Kramer and Bradish towards the end of the year, they were able to minimize the amount of pitches it took them to get into the 7th and 8th innings. And that's another thing. You talked about it, Ross. It just seems like they were much more aggressive early in the count. But again, getting your innings, getting experience, pitching's feel and touch. It's a lot easier to throw 95 to 110 pitches if they let you throw that many nowadays. If you have touch, and I thought those guys really made some gigantic, even Tyler Wells before he got hurt, gigantic steps forward this year. But the interesting thing to me is, they take it all away. You got you go from 52 wins to 83. Brandon Hyde, to me, he should have won the Manager of the Year award. I think he won the Sporting Goods. Sporting Good one, or Sporting News. Nothing against Terry Francona. We all know he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He's a marvelous. But his team didn't play the American League East. They played it. They won 92 games in the American League Central.
Yeah.
There was only one team, the White Sox. And they weren't over 500. They were 81 and 81.
Right.
There were 4 teams over 500 in the American League East. It's the big leagues, the real big leagues with a capital B. And Brandon did a great job. But he'll be the first guy to tell you, we can celebrate Thanksgiving. We can celebrate Christmas. But when you get into January, you start thinking about how are we going to try to, again, replicate 83 wins. And that to me, that's the starting point. Because you're a couple of games over 500?
Yeah.
Because the reality is, listen, I don't want to be a downhead during the holidays, but the Orioles had a 10-game winning streak and it changed their season. They went from maybe 9 games under 500 to 1 game over.
Right.
And the rest of the time, I think they played 4 or 5 games over. Now, again, very tough division. You played Houston 7 times from August 28th, who would be the world champs, and won 4 of those 7 games. And how'd you do it? You outpitched. I think there are a lot of Orioles hoping that Judge goes to the Giants.
I bet there are. By the way, for those watching this tonight, the word is out on MLBTradeRumors.com that the Astros are nearing a deal, a 3-year, $58.5 million deal with Jose Abreu. So just thought I'd let folks know that. And Justin Verlander due to talk to the Dodgers tomorrow. Ross, you got one more for Jim, and then I'll close it out.
Yeah, I do. I want to ask him this. As it cakes with all the new, the changes in the game, the new rules coming for next year, and probably in the future, there'll be some other changes. What do you like about the game now, and what do you kind of, dislike about it?
Well, I mean, I think the bigger bases are going to make it. We've gotten away from stealing bases mainly because, we had the three outcomes: you either strike out, you walk, or you hit home runs. I mean, Russ, if you watch the game, in my ear, if you threw a 85 to 87 mile per hour cutter in the middle of the plate, you know how far that ball would have gone?
Yeah.
Because guys didn't have launch angle swings. They were able to match the plane of the ball. And I think baseball has gotten away from it. It'll be interesting when you go, no shifts. And now doesn't mean you may not, have four outfielders. I mean, the way they may do that. I mean, you basically, not four outfielders, but you take one of your infielders and you put them in the outfield. And, so you may have four outfielders. I mean, who knows what they're going to do? But I know if with the bigger bases, if I was a base runner, I would think it's because people don't understand. First, everybody says 90 feet to first base. That was with a 12-inch base now, or 15-inch base. So you're actually a lot closer. Now you're going to be 18 inches. And second base is going to be 18, 3 inches closer. And how many times when you look back at replays and challenges, when it's a difference of that. So It's going to change the game. And, be very interesting. I mean, I used to always, when you were, of course, left-handed, you get a guy on first base. And in my era, if you were a left-handed hitter and you could not hit that ball in the hole to get the runner to third, and of course, you're trying to keep from getting from that, runner at third base with less than 2 out situations. Nowadays, they'd have a guy playing over there. That's going to change. And I think probably what I like the most is the pitch clock.
Yes.
You pitch quickly. You alluded to it earlier. Throw strikes, change speeds and pitch quickly.
Yep.
We had the pitch clock, I don't know, back in, Stan, do you remember when it was? It was never a factor for the Orioles.
I vaguely remember it,
Yeah.
but very briefly. Yeah.
But anyway, so you're going to have guys pitching a little bit quicker. And the other thing is, how many times do you see a hitter, got the batting gloves on, right? He doesn't swing.
Yeah.
The game's going to be quicker. When that All-Star game in 71 was in Detroit, Vita Blue pitched first. I pitched second. There were 6 home runs hit, all by Hall of Famers. And that game, I think it was 6-4. American League won. We didn't win too many games against the National League back then. 2 hours and 8 minutes. 2 hours and 8 minutes.
You won't see that now.
Well, but it's going to get better.
Jimmy, I caught the commissioner on with Bob Costas about 10 days ago. I don't know if you saw that. Are you aware with the shifting that up until this coming season, it hasn't been uniform how much dirt space there was on each field?
Oh, yeah.
You knew that?
Well, I don't know where we were last summer, but I was asking somebody, I mean, the cutouts are a little bit different at first base.
Right. Detroit's got the runway,
depth of the actual dirt, probably will have to be made uniform if they want to really make the Bulls uniform. So yeah, but I was never aware of that. I was never aware until a couple of years ago that it's not 90 feet to first base. The base actually,
comes in
towards home plate.
Right.
So it's really, it's what, 88 feet and 4 inches or whatever.
Hey, my last question for you is: we were kidding about it before the show, where you said, "Boy, today they'd have to put a Brinks truck up to my house to pay me with what guys are getting," and you're absolutely right as to what you have accomplished. But if you were entering the game today, you were 19 or 20 years old, what would they have been able to improve in your game through the use of analytics, Jim Palmer?
Well, it's funny. I always think about that. I mean, it's funny. I was talking to David Cohn, and he interviewed for the Yankee pitching staff. So he went in and he said he's basically with a bunch of analytical guys. And he said, listen, I want as much information as I can have as a pitching coach. or as a pitcher. But what about, what about this? And he kind of tapped his heart. Maybe this, how well can you think? And I go, oh, no, that's not the number one thing.
Right.
Well, Ross knows as well as I do. If you don't have a big heart, I mean, that's why when we pitched, and Ross was part of it. When we in '74, when we won 26 out of 31 or 25 out of 31 to win, they beat the Yankees. We pitched 5 straight shutouts. You were, pitched, I think, 1 or 2 of them. You learn a lot about yourself when you got to get it. You're at Fenway Park or Yankee Stadium when you got to get a guy out for the 3rd or 4th time with a 1-run lead. I mean, you learn about how smart you are, how good a shape you are, how can you pitch versus throw, how big your heart is, how big your cojones are. I mean, you just do. They don't, very rarely do these guys ever have that test them. So going back to your question, I'd want all the analytics, but if somebody had told me in A-ball that you got to use all 4 pitches, or they said you're only going to get to throw 85 pitches today because we want to protect you, I'm going, well, what am I going to do? It's only the 3rd inning. I mean, they kept pitches, but I mean, I walked 130 and 120 innings. And then I went down to instruction. I thought I got better, but I walked more. I got another 53 innings, probably walked 50, 57 down there. But I was in the big leagues because I got to work on my windup. I got to work on my fastball command. George Bamberger taught me if I can throw a ball down the way to a right-hander, I can throw it anywhere because you got to load, you got to extend, you got to get out over your front side, your front shoulders, your steering wheel. So those things are still important. But there was an Oriole pitcher that gave up 10 runs and 10 hits, 6 runs in 4 innings. And I didn't do that game. And then we were out in Seattle and I said, what was going on in Cincinnati? And he said, well, metrically and analytically, I felt pretty good. I liked my spin rate. And I looked at it and said, let me give you an Earl Weaver. You said after you pitched 4 innings and gave up 10 hits and 6, we told Earl Weaver, analytically and metrically, you really thought you were where you wanted to be. He would have said, try pitching down in Rochester that way. Which was So again, I think analytics are fine. But at the end of the day, can you stay out of the middle of the plate? Can you pitch? And again, I think a lot of the Orioles, it's funny, we're in Houston. I'll leave you with this. We're in Houston and our camera guys, I'm working with Jeff Arnold down there to do 3 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And this is when Bradish, Kramer, and Austin
both.
And the camera guy says, and Houston's going to win. They're going to eventually go to the World Series and win. He goes, can your guys get your breaking ball over? Because if you can, you're not going to have any trouble. And what did Dean Kramer and what did Kyle Bradish and what did Austin do in the next 3 games?
They got their breaking balls.
One, they had great sliders, cutters, curveballs, fastballs. Kramer I just read something. He wants to learn how to throw 100 over the offseason. Well, good luck with that, because that's the important thing. But they could throw strikes and they could pitch and they could get guys out different ways. So hopefully they'll be able to do it again this year. That's what Ross and I were able to do because they taught us that. So analyticals aside, you still have to know how to pitch. Somebody said, my grocery guy here said, Garrett Cole comes in here. I said, when you see him, tell him, I thought he pitched as well as he ever did in the playoffs in the World Series because he used his curveball. He struggled early and then he used his hook. So that's pitching. Nobody can tell you with a guy with an iPad sitting here with an iPad going, well, I think we need to do this. No, hitters tell you.
Jimmy, how many games you're going to do this year? You have any idea yet?
Many as they love me. No.
Anyway. And all kidding aside, you've worked with Keith Jackson on the big league level. You worked with John Miller. You worked with Brooks Robinson. How much do you enjoy working with Kevin Brown?
Kevin's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really a bright star. He really is.
He knows his stuff. He's always prepared. He never stutters. I'm a little jealous of that. In fact, I turned the game yesterday. I'm flipping channels yesterday afternoon, watching the Ravens implode in the 4th quarter again, which they got to figure out what they need to do. Yeah. Kevin Brown's in
He's in
Michigan State.
Portland. He's in
and-
Oregon doing the basketball game.
So the man, I mean, the man never sleeps. He does
Yeah.
women's softball, men's softball. I mean, he, volleyball, you name it. But again, he's a great broadcaster, and
Yeah.
everybody says he sounds like Joe Buck. I actually think that's quite a compliment, don't you?
It is a compliment, but you two have a special chemistry.
See,
He
that's
is,
what if somebody said to me, "This key guy pitches like Ross Grimsley," and I said, "Is it going to be 18 wins? Is it going to be 20 wins? What's it?"
he's the ace of class, as Tom Davies calls him. Jim Palmer. Jim, happy holidays to you and your family. Okay.
Well, happy holidays, everybody. Ross, are you in Bradenton?
Yes, I am.
Okay. See you in spring
Yeah.
training.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. You got it.
Okay.
All right.
Stan, be
See you
careful.
both soon. Stay
Okay.
well. Want
Thanks,
to thank
Joe.
the folks at the Costas Inn for bringing us this Zoom. I'll be on with Gary Stein Thursday evening. Our guest will be Tom Strickler from Steve Keller's National Recruiting Report. He'll talk about Kevin Willard and the job he's doing at the University of Maryland. Maryland plays Louisville tomorrow night in the ACC Big Ten Challenge from Louisville. All right, that's it for tonight. See you soon. Bye.